Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Roanoke Valley Libertarians online affiliate meeting. Today, we are joined by Wes Benedict. He is running for the Libertarian National Committee's chair position. He's held many roles inside the LP. He's done a lot of good work. He's came to Virginia and helped Dean on his campaign. So today, we're just going to go over some questions and find out some of the reasons that he would want to put himself into a position of being chair for the LP, Libertarian Party. So welcome, Wes. And we'll start off with, if you would like to do an introduction of yourself for those that don't know you.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Wes Benedict. I live in Austin, Texas. I've been a libertarian for over 25 years, and I started as a member and someone who just read the newsletters, and eventually served as the executive director of the Libertarian Party of Texas for 4 years. And then I served as the national executive director of the Libertarian Party for 8 years. And that's a tough position. I lasted longer than anyone else has ever served in that position. I like to think I'm very dedicated to the Libertarian Party and its principles, and I want it to be successful. And I've worked for 4 different chairs as executive director. So as executive director, I was the full-time staff person and had other staff working with me, and I worked underneath 4 chairs and boards of the Libertarian National Committee. And I think the party's been struggling for the last few years, and I just want it to be successful. We need a successful Libertarian Party to cut back on government and protect freedoms. And so that's why I'm running to be chair.
Sounds good. What motivated you to run for LNC chair at this time, and what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the Libertarian Party right now?
Well, there's been a lot of conflict within the party, and that's been the case on and off probably since the very beginning. But if you look at the numbers right now, the fundraising is down, the number of members who pay dues is down, the number of candidates who run for office is down quite a bit. So we've been in a downward trajectory for a few years, and I think because I worked at the national headquarters for so long, I'm familiar with all of the different things that need to be done to help grow the party. And I think I can make those things happen, and also just give some confidence to libertarians out there, because a lot of former Libertarian Party members and even current Libertarian Party members know me and know that I've delivered results. And so I think when they hear that I'm going to serve as chair, that will give some confidence back to the party and get some people involved again.
What do you plan to do to bridge the gap between the Mises/right wing part of the party and the left wing part of the party to get the party to come together? And because it's very toxic, it's rough to see, and I want to see success. And I think that you are one of the people that can bring that success. So what can you do to assure each side that you're going to work for them as their leader?
Yeah, well, you're right. There's been a lot of conflict, and there's a rightward leaning faction of the party, the Mises Caucus, that has been trying to pull things in their direction some. I'd say before they got heavily involved, there was a faction that was a little left leaning and probably tried to push the party to the left. And I like to think of myself as a perfect libertarian. So I'm perfectly in the middle. I'm sure every libertarian thinks they're perfect, but a perfect libertarian. But I think it's important that the party doesn't try and lean right or lean left. It needs to be libertarian on all issues. And even if you personally, and I used to be a Republican years ago, so I know where people are coming from that are right-leaning libertarians. But if you try and pull the party to one side or the other, it has the effect of alienating the other side. And I think it's okay for individuals to be leaning a little to the left or leaning to the right a little. Like if you want to run for Congress and you're pro-life and you want to run on that little bit light-leaning social policies, well, I think that's okay for you to do as an individual Libertarian Party candidate. We certainly have a lot of those in Texas that have run for Congress that were pro-life and maybe had some other more socially conservative leaning issues or policies. But also there may be some who lean towards the left and they're pro-choice, or they want to make marijuana legalization their primary issue. Let that be what they focus on and let them do that. And don't try, and those two different groups should not be working to push the others out of the party or to control the party and say it's only going to have my views. So I've always been very accepting of a wide variety of candidates out there who aren't always perfect like me on every issue, a perfect libertarian. And I think that's critical to having the party work together again. And if you look at Republicans and Democrats, I mean, there's a variety of Republicans out there, and there's a variety of Democrats. You know, you've got Biden. President Biden was more of a moderate, and then you've got Bernie Sanders, who's like a super left-wing progressive, and I guess he's an independent, maybe, so maybe he's not the right example. But there are super left progressive Democrats, and they're all in the same party, and they all have to work together sometimes. So we need that mindset. A big tent Libertarian Party. We welcome folks who are not perfectly right, straight up libertarian all the time, and encourage them not to fight with each other, because we're all so much better than the average Republican and Democratic congressman or politician.
Do you think that's what has kind of tore the party down in the last few years, is the infighting, because we have left-leaning and right-leaning factions that have taken over? We have more of a left-leaning chair right now. We had a right-leaning chair prior. Do you think that's part of why we've had that issue? And being in the center is a good thing. That's how I kind of ran my ship, even when I was as a secretary, the vice chair, and then the chair in the 2020 through 2022 thing, as I want to work with everybody, because I think everybody needs to have that opportunity to get together. All caucuses, to me, caucuses are kind of crazy because they're all individual thought processes, and I think we all need to be concentrating on being libertarian versus caucuses. But that's just my view.
Yeah, I think focusing on being a libertarian rather than your particular caucus or faction is a good thing. And also, sometimes there can be mild disagreements or professional differences of opinion on issues, but when it gets down into name calling or mocking or really unprofessional behavior by leaders of the party, that's when it becomes a much bigger problem. I would say Stephen Nikela has been very professional. He's been a very good chair, and we've had good chairs in the past, but I'd say his predecessor probably was a little too mean-spirited and divisive too often. And so I will try not to be that way. I'm not perfect either. I've certainly insulted folks online or here or there when it was, and probably crossed the line occasionally, but I've been active for 20 years, and you do that sometimes if you're passionate about what you believe and work within the party. But I really do appreciate different kinds of libertarians, and I've always been one about, hey, we need to run for every office, run for as many offices as we can, get as many members as we can, get involved in as many activities as we can. We need a much bigger party, and you don't get bigger by internally fighting too much.
Stephen Nikela they have just started their new program where they're trying to reach out to old members, and I guess for fundraising, bring them back into the party. Is there anything that you're seeing, because since he's not going to be trying to run for chair, you can't really say this is going to be a success or a failure because there's not a lot of time here. Is there anything that he's done where if you were to become chair, you're saying, I want to continue with what they've done, or will you bring a whole brand new idea to it for membership and fundraising? And I wish I remembered the name, but I don't want to try to just throw it out there.
There's a project called, I think it's called Project Parity, and it's saying get the Libertarian Party to be as big as the Republicans and Democrats. Mm-hmm. It's certainly a worthy goal, and if we, I'd like us to be bigger than the Republicans or Democrats, but obviously we got to grow a lot to be on par with the other parties. I think it's based off of a program this 25 years ago called Project Archimedes.
Yes.
The concept is let's get more members. I'd say the original concept from 25 years ago was let's study what a libertarian profile is. What are their characteristics? What it used to be like, what magazines do they subscribe to? What other organizations do they donate to? How do we look at the characteristics of a libertarian using publicly available data or data that you can buy from companies that have a lot of this, and identify what are characteristics of a libertarian so we can go reach out and find more. And hopefully so that when we spend money to advertise for the party, whether you're spending money to do snail mail, direct paper mail, or whether you're spending money on ads on Facebook or some other means, spending money to advertise to get people to donate or join the Libertarian Party. And the what is like the super success is if you can find something where you're breaking even or making a profit, reaching out to get new people to join the party. So, for example, if dues are $25, if you spend $50 to get one person to join for $25, well, then you've lost $25, at least in the short run. But if you can find groups that are just the best groups to reach out to, and in the past we found that, so have you heard of Reason Magazine?
Yes.
Okay. So we found Reason Magazine to be one of the best. If we send a mailing to Reason Magazine donors or subscribers, that turns out to be one of the highest rate of returns we can get. So, if Reason Magazine was 100 times bigger, we would be able to reach out and get 100 times more members, because we almost break even when we send a mailing to the Reason Magazine list. Cato Institute is significantly smaller. Like it may be only about 1/4 is good. The return when we spend money to advertise and send a join the party thing to a Cato list. And it kind of goes down from there. Oh, registered libertarians is also a good list, but it's registered libertarians who have voted recently. We've done test mailings reaching out to registered libertarians. And some people, obviously, they just go get their driver's license that says register to vote. They register and then they don't vote for, like 10 years. If we ask someone like that to join the party, the response rate is super low. But if you look at people who voted in the last recent elections, you get a good response. So, both of those projects are intended to spend some money to send mailings or place ads on Facebook or other social media to get people to come join the party. And you have to do it. You have to experiment. You have to try different ads. You have to try different messages, and you have to try reaching out to different groups to find the best ones that have a good return on investment. So that's what, even if you didn't have a project, like when I was executive director, we didn't officially have a project named that, but we did do some of that reaching out for new donors and members, and we were somewhat successful. But I think 25 years ago they did it on a big scale. I think some people donated like a whole lot of money to invest in this, and that helped grow the membership a lot. And so a lot of people, I think they got up over 30,000 members. We're down to about 9,000 members nationwide right now. So I will continue it. Now you have to constantly look at how is it doing. Are we spending a whole lot of money and not getting many new members? Maybe it's not worth it if it's not working well, and maybe we just do it to the easiest groups out there and not spend a lot of money on it. So it's something you have to look at and see how well it's working.
So you're talking about data. That's a big problem right now. CRMs in states hooking up with national. It's just a nightmare. Do we have a plan on what we can do to improve that? Because I know at a state level, we have to keep asking, I guess, for data to be sent. And obviously the old system failed miserably. I think they're on Zoho now. It's an easier platform, but we still have to get information. I think we go through Ken Molman still to get some of the data we had from the past. It's kind of really broken. And you were saying about registered libertarians. There are states like ours that don't have registered libertarians, but I know we can reach lists by using that data, CRM data. But the big problem is we have a big problem with the CRM right now. You have anything to work on fixing that?
Yeah, it's critical for data sharing and for data maintenance to work. I haven't used the current system, that Zoho system. So when I was there, well, for quite a while, there was something we used called Razor's Edge, and it was the national database system. I didn't implement it, but it was there when I got there, and we did make it better. We went through a few iterations to make it work more smoothly and functional. At the state level, states mostly did something on their own, so they could use any kind of CRM they wanted, and it varied from some people use something like Nation Builder to Civi CRM, and some places would just use spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. A key thing about these databases is somebody's still got to look at it and maintain it and make sure that it's kept up to date. And so even if you buy new software and implement it and set it up once, if somebody's not there making sure it's kept up to date and accurate, it's not going to work well. And it's always been surprisingly difficult for the national and the state party databases to synchronize themselves and keep up to date. And at first, it sounds like an easy thing to do, but there are people who, I want to use this email address for my state party membership, but I want to use a different email address for my national party activities, and trying to allow for all those little differences or unique things. It's not easy to do, because maybe at the state level, you'll change the email address, and then the person's like, hey, I didn't change, they'll contact national and say, why did you change my email address? I didn't want to change. And it's like, oh, the state changed it. So I'm just saying, even when everyone's doing their best and things are working well, it's still a complicated problem having a national and a state database and records. I think sounds like it's not working very well right now overall. When I was there, at the minimum, we would at least email a spreadsheet with the current data every month. So every state would get, and this is like a worst case scenario, but you at least get an email with a list of all the data from your state. So Virginia would get a list of all the members that were in the national database. And if everything else was broken, at least you had that spreadsheet with all the members in there. But no, it needs to, we need to look at it and make sure something's working. I don't know exactly what's working okay now and what's totally broken. But that's the kind of thing that it's important to dig in and fix those. You can only just say nice, positive things and inspire people so long if your back office operations are broken.
Yep, I agree.
We got a question from someone watching. He just, as you can see, it says, "What would you do different from past party chairs, and what would be your message on the Minnesota stuff going on? What would the Libertarian message on that?" Now, to just go on with that, one of the big criticisms I remember during the COVID was people didn't feel like the Libertarian Party came out with a strong enough message with the lockdowns. What's the balancing act to a strong message to the proper message? So I'll let you answer that question if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the COVID issue. I put something out very strong on what the Libertarian position on COVID should be. This was like in March of 2020. Is that when this started? 2020?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Started 19.
It started 2019 at the end, but then it was I think all the shutdowns were happening in 2020. To me, the COVID issue was a very easy. It should have been an easy home run for libertarians to explain, because we're all about personal choice, personal responsibility, your private property, your right to free speech. If I think COVID came from China, I should be able to say it. If I don't think it came from China, should be able to say that. If you are for or against a vaccine, that's your personal choice. If you want your church, if you want to go to church and your church wants to allow church services to happen, the government has no right to shut that down. So I think that the Libertarian Party was weak in response to the COVID messaging. It should have been a lot stronger, and I came out very strong in the very beginning saying that. So I've published plenty on that. So if I'm chair, I will definitely come out strongly defending freedom, especially on something to me that was a very easy issue. Now, how would I differ from past chairs? Well, for one thing, I worked for 4 different chairs. I had 4. The chairman is the executive director's boss. So I worked for Bill Redpath, Jeff Neal, Mark Hinkle, and Nick Sarwark. And all of them were good to work with and good to work for. And of course, if you've ever had a boss, I don't know, have you ever disagreed with your boss on some things?
Absolutely.
I certainly have. And I certainly did with all of them. I would say in general, the chair needs to set priorities, especially on what staff should be doing. And I felt like often the LNC and the chairs would constantly say, do this project, do this project, do this project. And it became too much most of the time. And so we could either try and do all of those things and do a weak or a poor job on a bunch of projects, or not get them done at all. And it's kind of like, if states are having the problem with their databases right now, then I don't want to do a whole bunch of new projects until we focus on those priorities. So I think I will be better at talking to staff, seeing what they're capable of getting done, and make sure we have realistic priorities on getting different projects done. That'll be the big difference between the other chairs. Minnesota, well, yeah, so you want to get into immigration. That's a controversial issue within the Libertarian Party. I've always been for making it easier to immigrate legally and make it easier to come and get work visas to work more easily. And I think if it was easier, there would be a lot less illegal immigration. I've published a bunch on immigration and free trade on my personal Facebook page. So if you want to know what I really think, you can go to facebook.com/wes.benedict and see what I've been posting there. We've been the party of smaller government, and ICE going in, and it seems like they have way too much power. They're arresting people and without probable cause and shipping them away, and it's out of control. So, I'm for peaceful protests. I'm against and civil disobedience, but I'm against like violence and vandalism. I think that's always wrong, and that sometimes happens when people are protesting. So. But I'd say in general, I think the federal government has gotten way too controlling, and we don't want a federal police force invading our cities and invading people's homes, and without it's just wrong. What's going on? What the federal government's doing right now?
Now, one thing that I want to just say, and I've been saying this to a lot of folks because I've been with the LP since 2010, and I've here recently started feeling like sometimes the Libertarian Party's messaging, we stop short in the aspect of, and I'll use legalization of drugs. We'll just go legalize, like I'm a legalize all drugs, but we got to continue on the statement of we can legalize it, but there's things that happen when you use it and when we do that can be a detriment. It's like legalization of prostitution or whatever. And I think sometimes we stop short, and I would like to see libertarian, I'm not the greatest speaker, but when I do speak, I try to be as good. I try to make sure people understand that I'm not just going legalize all drugs and it's just going to be this, wild, wild west.
Right. With drug legalization, we're not advocating using drugs.
Right.
Abusing drugs, most illegal drugs are harmful and cause you health problems, and that's a surprise to nobody out there. And I think, if we just say, hey, we want to be able to use drugs, that sounds like we want drugs because we want to use them.
Right.
There are certainly some libertarians and others who do want to use some of the drugs that are illegal, but it's not what most libertarians are doing. You go to a libertarian meeting, people are not using drugs. They're not using illegal drugs.
Right.
We're for legalizing it because we think it will reduce the harm and it'll make government smaller. People who are hooked on drugs have trouble getting help that they need because they're doing something illegal, and so it's kind of hard to be honest about what you're doing if you could get arrested for having used drugs or having possessed drugs. And we think a lot of the crime associated with the war on drugs would go away if drugs were legalized. And if you just think about it, if there's a drug dealer out there and he goes and tries to sell some illegal marijuana or whatever to someone, and somebody shows up and steals the drugs and doesn't pay for it and runs off, you can't call the police, right? Neither person can call the police, right, because they're doing something illegal. And so that's why those kind of conflicts are handled by direct violence. Whereas, if I go to the grocery store and pay for something and the store doesn't give me the food or doesn't give me the whatever I'm buying, it's like, well, you post that on Facebook, or you can tell everyone, you can call the police, if someone takes your money. So the drug issue, the whole black market issue, naturally results in a criminal enterprise that has to enforce the drug market, and that's where the problems come. So both in people who are abusers who need help, who can't get it, and the violence that comes along with imposing discipline on that black market. So, right, we want to legalize drugs and end the war on drugs because it means smaller government, less crime, but we don't want people to hurt themselves with drugs.
Correct. All right. Now, this is going to be a two-parter. You have the Libertarian Booster PAC, which has helped fund candidate filing fees and promotions. How would you integrate or expand that similar approach into the national party's fundraising efforts?
Well, so yeah, I run something called the Libertarian Booster PAC. It's a political action committee that's separate from the Libertarian Party governing structure. That's the way PACs operate. But its whole purpose is to help Libertarian Party candidates, which helps the Libertarian Party overall. A nice thing about it is with a PAC, you don't have to wait on your state or county organization or the national organization to make decisions, and you don't all have to agree with everyone. Just like the Mises PAC was a PAC that operated, but there are other PACs that help recruit and support candidates in other states. That PAC serves the people who donate to that PAC, and it serves candidates because that's what the donors want. I would encourage so a PAC can't be controlled by the party, and the PAC's not really directly controlling the party either. Those are separate organizations. But again, both are helping the Libertarian Party and Libertarian candidates. So I don't know. The PAC would stay separate from the national party. So if I'm like the national chair, if I'm doing something on behalf of the National Libertarian Party, then that would be with a separate hat on than if I'm doing something with the PAC that I run. The PAC that I run has typically only helped 1 or 2 or maybe 3 states at a time in a year. So it's the way that I'm able to get a lot done through the PAC is to help a batch of candidates all at one time, because we've got to learn the campaign finance rules for that state, learn what the issues are for the state, learn the process for running for office within that state party. So I've helped Virginia at least 2 different election cycles. I can't remember if I did it a third or not. I think I've done it 2 election cycles. One time we helped with the petition drive for Robert Sarvis when he ran for governor. We kind of helped recruit him to run, and then funded maybe $15,000 for the petition drive. And then that same year, recruited 6 candidates for Virginia delegate, and helped them get on the ballot. And then we did it again several years later. But I don't know. I see both need to be successful, and I'll continue working with the booster PACs as well.
Do you have a question, Dean?
I was just saying, yeah, the second time around is when you helped actually me out, so I was definitely appreciative. You did a lot for the candidates in Virginia that year, and we appreciative of that. And it shouldn't be forgotten when people go to vote for chair what you've done for many states and what you've done for ballot access and petitioning, because it's very difficult, specifically in Virginia, but a lot of places, to get on the ballot. So
yeah, it is.
Your leadership would come in even bigger, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tough to get on the ballot in Virginia, and that's why we only did like 6 candidates each time. I have helped recruit candidates in Alabama, and I think we got, it was like 65 or something, and maybe 57 in Arkansas, and I think 17 in Mississippi. I used to have those numbers at the tip of my tongue. I hope I got them right. And then I've recruited a lot of candidates in Texas over the years, and helped a little bit in some other states. So it's another reason I want to run for national chair, and think I'd be the best person for it, because I have helped significantly in multiple states with the Libertarian Party. And I think that shows that I have the most, I'll be most likely to be successful in helping all the states around the country grow to the degree that the National Party can help. The National Party can't do a whole lot of stuff for everyone. It can only do a limited amount. And I think I've been good at saying, okay, here's the few things that we could do and should do so that we don't spread too thin and so that we do help all 50 states as much as we can.
How would you strengthen relationships between the national LNC and state parties to ensure better coordination?
Well, one of the first things is just try and be a nice person at the national level. And most of the time I've been that way, even with states that, sometimes there's been states who wanted to run a chair to get rid of whoever my current chairman was, whoever the current boss was. But I still treated each one of those state parties as a separate entity, something to be respected. And especially if they're recruiting and running candidates, I want them to do more. That's a mindset, though, that I want to be successful and I want your state to be successful no matter who your state party is. So let's just say one state votes against me for chair. Let's say y'all are Virginia. Let's say I get 0 votes from Virginia for chair. Well, I'm still going to respect the Libertarian Party of Virginia and do what I can to help y'all be successful after that election. And so that really the mindset's an important thing. And then I've already shown I have the skills as executive director to work with states the entire time that I was executive director. Another thing is being realistic. I understand how hard it is to be a state chair and to run a state organization. States are not somebody to be ordered around and bossed around and told what to do. Our state parties are run mostly by volunteers who put as much time as they can into it. And we want them to make them look their best. Sometimes I'm like, even though they're a $1,000 organization, we want to make them look like $1 million organization, even if we're just kind of putting up a front. But we want a nice looking website if we can help them, a database that works, and some candidate tools that help their candidates look better. It's the National Party. It does some communications, it posts some stuff on social media, but it's the state parties that recruit all the candidates, run the candidates, and make us a big, successful organization. And I've always been big on running candidates, run strong campaigns, get as many candidates as you can, and that's what helps the states grow.
Okay. Now, should the LP pursue more coalition or alliances with other third-party or independent movements, or focus strictly on building independently? Because I remember when the Mises Caucus, I don't want to say Mises Caucus, it was during Angela McArdle. They did the Rage Against the War Machine. I thought it was a terrific idea. But it seemed like it got a lot of blowback. Now, it might have been with who they were dealing with. I don't know. But I wanted us to be out there in front of, I want us to be the leaders and not, hey, we were the ones defending legalization of marijuana. All right. Or as we were talking about, drugs. And then the Democrats will come along. They take the idea, which is okay, whatever. And then they turn it into this a bigger black market because they add taxes to it. Here in the state, they're going to make marijuana is going to probably become recreational use. But online, you're seeing with these taxes that they're going to add to it, it's already going to, like, people are already saying, well, why am I going to go buy it from a local place when I can buy it from my dealer with no, but much should cheaper, we, right? Yeah. But so in turn, going back, should we work with the third parties or should we work independently?
Well, I think it is good to do coalitions with other organizations. There was I'm trying to remember what it was called, but when I was at the national headquarters, there was an event. It had to do with privacy. And the libertarians showed up and spoke some and appeared at it. at state levels, this happens all the time. You know, Libertarian Party organizations, like it could be candidates or party representatives, show up to tax protests, to war protests, to drug legalization efforts, all kinds of things. So I think we need to keep doing it. The one that was a controversy in Washington, D.C., there's more to it on how it was organized that maybe wasn't appropriate, and maybe some people put some things that made it look intentionally trying to make it look bad. I don't know. But in general, I'd say, no, we should participate in plenty of those things. It takes a lot of work to put on a big rally. It's at the national level, you're talking tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we don't have the manpower or the money to always put these on ourselves. In fact, that's one reason I tell people to run for candidates, how you get a huge benefit. Because let's say you're a libertarian in Austin, Texas. You can set up a route. You can set up a big meeting and reserve a space and get maybe 20 people to show up or 100 people, and do that a few times and wear yourself out. Or as a candidate, if you say you're running for Congress and you start reaching out to all these groups doing things, they'll invite you to their event. So now you can go speak at a rally or speak at an event and get the same publicity, and you're actually meeting people who aren't libertarians because you didn't organize it. You're reaching more independent people out there, more of the public, and yet you didn't have to spend any of the money to set up the event. You didn't have to do all the organizing, getting the stuff out there. So we get a big bang for the buck by showing up to other people's events, and when we have issues that we agree on, and that's pretty often. It's happening all the time. I used to show up sometimes at the state capitol in Texas. I would show up with a big old sign, and at the very top, like if there was a pro school choice thing, I'd say Libertarians for School Choice. Simple as that. And surprisingly, those would show up in newspapers or on television, you know, when they're doing a panning of the group, and it tells people Libertarians are for school choice. Doesn't say much else, but that little spotlight shows up. And I think someone showed up with a Russian sign at our anti-war protests, and so, oh, it's Russians, you know. That was unfortunate. But we got to keep doing these coalitions and work with other groups.
And I'll say with the school choice thing, that's it's funny you say that, because when I was running for delegate, I was invited. Well, I got invited to to speak at it was mainly for the school board people, but I was allowed to go in there and talk about my candidacy because they didn't like the Republican that was there. So there were basically Republicans that were disenfranchised and showed up. To say the least, on election day, I didn't have a ton of signs, but when it came to that area, they would take the Republicans' sign and put a rhinoceros sign on top of it. So, and I got more votes in that area, believe it or not, just by going to that event and speaking. So it does have a correlation effect to that. It's very interesting. Yeah, if you can get to other people's events, it's always the benefit. Unfortunately, there's a gun show. We used to do the gun show all the time, but we got kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. They don't let you in all events. I was going to say, to address what Brian said, sometimes we have a positive impact because we're there if we're there, we can influence the Democrats to have a better bill than if we hadn't been there and hadn't been there chatting with them about it. So yeah, if Democrats are legalizing marijuana in Virginia, but putting so many taxes on it that it ends up being almost illegal still, we can explain, look, this is what you're doing wrong. You know, if we're there, and they might listen to us. They don't always listen to us, that's for sure. But it is good to be there.
How do you plan to position the Libertarian Party in the post 2024-25 political landscape, especially with the potential shifts in the major party into parties?
Well, I don't know for sure what shift that they have in mind, but when I look at the Republican Party, it has shifted from being for free markets and low taxes and free trade to being for tariffs and shake down big business and we thought Trump was going to end the wars and bring our troops home, and now he's looking at starting a few wars. So there's just a huge opportunity for the Libertarian Party to make it clear how we are different from Republicans and Democrats. If I look at Democrats, they control California, right? Super heavily Democratic state, and they spend tons of money on social programs and welfare. Yet you go there, there's homeless everywhere. It's like they've made it illegal to be working poor. It's like you're middle class or rich or you're homeless. They've made it impossible to be poor. You're living outside, you're living in a car, you're homeless. Democrats they say they're for poor people. They've been terrible to poor people, especially wherever they're in control. They pass rules that make it impossible to build affordable housing. They spend money on government housing for a few poor people, but it could never be enough. The only way they get money for that is by raising taxes on everyone else. And the same thing with like what you talked about, marijuana legalization in Virginia. There's so many things that Democrats have done poorly to make life harder and worse on poor people. And that's where libertarians can step up. So to me, there's never been a more important critical time for libertarians to be out there. And our policies are very good. And it's not like new crazy stuff invented out of the blue. All of our policies have been written about for decades. There's nothing surprising or new. So we just need to make sure that we get out there and let the public know we exist and make them feel like you got to vote against your parties. You got to vote third party for them to ever change. If you just keep rewarding your party, no matter how bad it gets, even though you don't disagree with them because you really hate that other side so much more, things won't change. So I don't know if you got to elaborate some on what changes in the national parties you were talking about also. I don't know if I hit it.
No, that was good. You spoke about Trump and he was going to be this anti-war, because I was asked about him right at 2024, and I said, for the most part, his first term, I thought he did. I mean, there was issues that I had with him on his foreign policy, but I think it was about as good as you're going to get. This time, I thought it was very lackluster. I've been disappointed on this one. The only thing that Trump has done, and this is going to lead in, is his bringing on Robert Kennedy Jr. Now, he became a lifetime libertarian, or he joined the party. He was seeking the nomination, I know, for that brief moment. You helped him for a minute. Can you just elaborate on that? And after that, once the Trump administration is done, of course, you saw, I don't think RFK is saying anything different than he did when he was 10 years ago. Maybe he is, and I wasn't paying that much attention to him. Is he going to try to help the LP in the aspect? Because I think what he got hired to do is, I agree with. Now, I'm not agreeing with a lot of his other policies, but his health stuff, I'm fine with. Do you know, was he going to help the LP any, or what was his stance there?
Yeah, so just a little background on that. After the national convention in 2024, I was hired by the Kennedy for President campaign to serve as their Texas state director. And I did that for 3 months. I learned a lot doing it, and learned a lot how a bigger campaign, but not a huge major party campaign, but a bigger campaign can run and nationwide. But it was pretty controversial. I got a lot of upset libertarians mad at me, saying, "Why did that I turned on the Libertarian Party?" And I understand that, and it's it's justifiable to be disappointed with me for that. I will say at the time I did it, I never would have expected Kennedy to join the Trump campaign. I mean, Kennedy had been a long-term Democrat, an environmentalist, and a lawyer, and sued every big business for his whole career. And I could say I could see him maybe dropping out and endorsing the Democrat, but I didn't think he would drop out and join the Republican Party and be in the administration. So when he dropped out and joined the Trump campaign, first of all, they let us all go and shut down their campaign, but then they did invite me to help with the Trump campaign. And I was like, I can't go that far. Sorry, not going to do it. I've spent decades asking people to vote Libertarian and join the Libertarian Party and give money and run as a Libertarian. And I can't now can't go ask people to vote for a major party candidate. And also, so I voted for Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate. I donated to his campaign. But I don't know what Kennedy's going to do next. I've never met him personally. I've never talked to him personally. It's I will say the Democratic Party treated him so poorly that in the long run, I kind of see how he was able to join the Trump campaign, because they allocated like $100 million just to kick Kennedy off the ballot, just to fight against him. So there's everywhere it's kind of like when a party attacks you kind of start liking their enemy some, right? The enemy of my enemy starts becoming your friend. And so I've often been mad at that Republican Party because they've made ballot access harder for us in Texas, so I have this personal grudge against the Republican Party of Texas, but I certainly see how Kennedy had a grudge against the National Democratic Party based on the things they did to him throughout the country. Kennedy he had a lot of libertarians on his campaign, and I do think those influenced him in a positive direction. When he spoke at the national convention, he said, "I'm not a libertarian, but y'all have a lot of great ideas." And he went through policy after policy, explaining how he agreed with the details of the libertarian position on things. And he often said, once you lose a freedom, it's hard to get them back. You almost never get them back. But I don't think he's really a libertarian. He on his website when he was running, when they asked me to work for him, like, man, it says $15 minimum wage. We're for eliminating the minimum wage. How could he be a libertarian? How could he run? And there were many other things. I think he had universal health care as a policy he wanted. Maybe it was Medicare for all or something. So I don't know what he's going to do next. I think if he becomes more libertarian and adopts more libertarian positions, and maybe he could be like someone like a Justin Amash, who changed his mind on some issues and joined the Libertarian Party and became a libertarian. But I don't know. It's hard for me to see that when he is now in the Trump administration, dropping out of that to be a libertarian. It's a big leap.
Right. Well, it would always be nice, because I think one of the things that the Libertarian Parties needs is always famous people. We used to have Penn Jillette and Drew Carey and folks like that. Kurt Russell, I think, would say he's a libertarian. And I want to see them promoted more, and not because, like, if you look at the Republicans or Democrats, they've got the Kid Rock and Nicki Minaj, and over here throw a stone, and that's who the Democrats have got to come out and hawk their ideas. And we need people like that. And I hate when I see Penn Jillette walk away from the party, or Drew Carey endorse Kamala Harris, and it's like, we got to be better here. Come on.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we've had more in the past. I think we have to grow some again and become more professional for people to be willing to put their name on out in public as supporting libertarians. So I think we've got some damage to repair. And I'll tell you, it was about 6 months ago. This is before I decided to run for chair, but I went to my local libertarian meeting, and part of what I do with the Libertarian Booster PAC is I sell some libertarian shirts because I wasn't happy with the supply National had, and so I wanted something that just very clearly said libertarian, just that word on there, plenty large, so you can read it. And I used to help distribute those, I'd sell those shirts and wear them myself. And I found myself about 6 months ago leaving a Libertarian Party meeting and not feeling comfortable walking into the grocery store in my neighborhood with that libertarian shirt on, because there had been so much bad stuff out there, racist sounding stuff from the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire and some others. And it's like, I don't want to be associated with a party that welcomes racists. And I'm not trying to be some left progressive kind of libertarian. I want to be a big tent libertarian. And that's never been an issue with the party for decades. Through all of our existence, that never was an assumption or a public image that we had. But I think over the last, for about a year, there was a lot of negative publicity, and that's what people were seeing. And I don't want to be associated with that. And that is one reason I wanted to run for chair. It's like we already sound mean because we want to get rid of all welfare, have no taxes, and reduce regulations and all that. The thing that's nice about us is that we're accepting of all kind of people, and that means people of all nationalities. And if you're gay, you're welcome in the Libertarian Party. If you're a Christian, you're welcome. If you're a Muslim, you're welcome. If you're Jewish, you're welcome. We're the party that we understand how free markets, freedom, and free enterprise works, and it works so well that everybody can be part of it, and society thrives that way. And we've always had that, like with religion in America. We've always had a lot of religious diversity, all the Protestant and Catholic religion, of course, but with also Jewish people, Mormons, and of course, there's pagan. If you look in the Libertarian Party details, you'll find all these very obscure religions as well. But it works in America because we have freedom of religion. We don't impose our religion on others, and we just need to be that party that continues to welcome everyone. And I don't remember the original question now. Hopefully, I hit on it.
Yes, you did. You did fine. All right. If elected chair, what's one bold initiative would you want to launch in your first 100 days? Or do you have something that you're ready to do?
The number one thing that I'll get to work on is getting our monthly pledge revenue up. Fundraising is a big problem for the party, and I think people will sign up for that monthly donation once they see that I'm elected and they have faith that the party's going to continue operating professionally. So I'll want to get that monthly pledge revenue up, and I can do that in multiple ways. I did it before when I was first hired as executive director, and I just start getting on the phone with the people who used to be monthly donors or significant donors today and say, hey, sign up for a monthly pledge. We need that revenue. And it's low risk for you, because if I start doing things you don't like, then you'll cancel your monthly pledge, and you it's not like you gave one big lump sum and we wasted it on something, or I did policies you don't like. So that'll be a top priority when if I'm elected, and I'll get on the phone and do quite a bit of that myself, but also advertising that to folks, please join and do the monthly pledge. We've got to stop spending money and wasting money. We moved into that building when I was executive director, and it got completely paid off. And the former LNC let the roof start leaking and they didn't repair it. When a roof leaks on a 2-story building with a basement, I don't know all the damage that was done, but I think they ended up selling the property for about $200,000 less than what they paid for it. And that's a tragedy. That's like not maintaining your database, not maintaining the roof. That those basics have to be under control before you even talk about any kind of new big initiatives outside of there. So, yeah.
Okay. And Dean, do you have any questions left?
I hit on like one or two that I was going to ask. So you've hit it well.
So the final question is, why should any Libertarian delegate vote for you over the other candidates for the LNC chair?
I've been a Libertarian for over 25 years, and I served as executive director of the National Libertarian Party for 8 years. That's longer than anyone else has ever served in that position. I did every function that needs to be done at the national headquarters. I worked with the database. I did press conferences, appeared in on television and in newsprint, worked with candidates, recruited them. I think I have the best hope of turning the party around and getting it to work well. I've recruited more Libertarian candidates than anyone else in the history of the party. And that's even after leaving the national office. I've recruited more candidates who lost their elections, and I've recruited way more candidates who have actually won their elections than anyone else in the party's history. And to me, the party can get some publicity, and the party can help put pressure on and educate the public on our policies. But our candidates, having hundreds or thousands of candidates, is how we really get out there and get in front of millions and millions of people and get them to vote Libertarian, and also to understand Libertarian policies, how much they benefit them and the whole country. So I want to be national chair. I would actually be fine not doing it if I thought someone else had a good chance of getting the party going, because I do run the Libertarian Booster PAC. It's an effective organization. I'm able to help candidates that way, and I'm a volunteer in my state and county occasionally. But I'm just not convinced that anyone else who's running is going to do nearly as good a job as I can do. So that's why I want your support. I want the party to grow. We got to get it built back up. I've 8 years serving as executive director with 4 different LNCs and chairs. I was able to be successful. So I appreciate your vote.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to get this sent out. I will see you in Grand Rapids. If you're free on February 28th, the Virginia State Convention will be taking place. So you're always welcome to show up. That's February 28th in Waynesboro, Virginia. So until next time, that's Wes, that's Dean, I'm Brian. We will talk to you later. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.